On a rainy afternoon, a gaunt man stood near the gas station holding a cardboard sign that read, "Can I fix it for food?" His clothes were soaked, his shoes worn thin, and his hands were covered in grease. People passing by laughed. Some even recorded him for social media, mocking the idea that this homeless man could fix anything. But what none of them knew was that just a few years ago, he was a national racing champion with trophies stacked in his garage, a man whose name once echoed in stadiums. Today, destiny was about to give him one last race, off the track. What could have possibly happened to bring a champion racer to the streets? Stay with me, because this story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about resilience, judgment, and redemption. Before life pushed him to the streets, Marcus Hale was a name motorsport fans cheered for. His rise from a small-town mechanic to a professional racing champion was the stuff of documentaries. He had the speed, the charisma, and the dream team that made him nearly unstoppable on the track. For years, his garage was lined with shining, trophies and glossy magazine covers with his name in bold letters. But fame, as it often does, came with a price tag. Behind the cameras and champagne showers, Marcus struggled with the weight of sponsorship demands, constant travel, and the gnawing pressure to stay number one. A freak accident during an important race left him with injuries that took him off the circuit for a season, and while his body healed, the world moved on. Sponsors dropped him. Bills piled up, his once loyal crew scattered to other drivers. Marcus tried to fight back, opening a small repair shop to stay connected to the machines. He loved, but a recession forced him to close within months. When his savings dried up, so did his support system. Family members stopped taking his calls, and friends who once stood beside him slowly disappeared. Pride kept him from asking for help until there was nothing left but an empty apartment and a bag of tools. That's when Marcus found himself living out of an abandoned car, spending his days wandering neighborhoods offering to fix broken lawnmowers, bicycles, or anything that could earn him enough to eat. To most strangers, he was just another homeless man with a dirty face and a cardboard sign, but behind those tired eyes still burned the spirit of a champion, waiting for one chance to prove he wasn't finished yet. One morning, Marcus stood outside, a busy auto shop, his sign clutched in one hand, tools in the other. He knew this shop well. Years ago, its owner had begged him for a signed photograph to hang on the wall. Now, the same man barely glanced his way. Customers streamed in and out laughing and joking, but Marcus remained invisible until a group of young mechanics spotted him. "Hey, champ!" one of them shouted sarcastically, pointing at his sign. The others laughed, making pit stops around him like he was a street-side attraction. They revved their engines, pretending to wave a checkered flag, mocking the man who once flew past finish lines for a living. Marcus kept his head down, but each laugh cut into him like shrapnel. Hunger gnawed at his stomach, and humiliation weighed heavier than the drizzle that soaked his jacket. As the day wore on, a sleek black sports car pulled into the shop. Its owner, a wealthy man in a tailored coat, stepped out and began complaining loudly about the car's performance. Marcus, despite his exhaustion, couldn't help but listen. The problem was obvious to him. He could hear it in the engine's uneven purr. Gathering his courage, he approached and quietly offered to take a look. The wealthy man stared at him with disgust, waving him off as though he were contagious. "Don't touch my car," the man barked, accusing him of looking for handouts. The group of mechanics laughed even louder, egging him on, saying maybe Marcus could race it for scraps. For Marcus, this wasn't just about food anymore. It was about dignity. He felt the sting of every judgmental glance, every cruel chuckle, every whispered has-been behind his back. That night, he sat under the flickering streetlight by the corner of the shop, staring at the wet pavement. He thought about the man he used to be, the roar of the crowd, the smell of burning rubber, the gold medal heavy in his hands. He hadn't forgotten how to fix cars. He hadn't forgotten how to win. What he had lost was the belief that anyone would ever take him seriously again. But something inside him snapped that night. If the world wouldn't give him a chance, he would create one. He stayed awake, planning, sketching on the back of his soggy cardboard sign, determined that the next time someone mocked him, he wouldn't just stand there. He would remind them who Marcus Hale really was. The next morning, Marcus was ready before sunrise. He dragged out an old, dented toolbox he had kept hidden beneath the steps of an abandoned house, cleaned his hands in a puddle, and walked straight to the auto shop. The mechanics were already there, sipping coffee, leaning against cars. They noticed him immediately and smirked, waiting for the day's entertainment. But Marcus didn't speak. He knelt by the sports car from yesterday, listening to the engine as the owner complained again about how no one could fix it. When the shop's crew struggled to diagnose the issue, Marcus finally stood and, without asking, began working. His hands moved with the precision of a surgeon, tightening, adjusting, and replacing a single worn part he had salvaged weeks earlier. In minutes, the engine roared to life, smooth and perfect, its sound echoing through the lot. For a moment there was silence. Then the wealthy owner's face turned from annoyance to shock. The mocking mechanics stared, their laughter gone, as Marcus calmly stepped back and wiped his hands. "She's ready," he said quietly. The owner, curious now, asked who he was. When one of the older customers recognized Marcus from his racing days, the atmosphere shifted completely. The realization spread like wildfire. This wasn't just some drifter. This was Marcus Hale, the man who once dominated racetracks across the country. Phones came out, pictures were taken, and for the first time in years, Marcus wasn't invisible. But Marcus wasn't interested in their sudden respect. He didn't bask in the attention or wait for applause. Instead, he picked up his tools, walked to a nearby wall, and began fixing other broken machines that had been left to rust. People gathered around, whispering, filming, offering him money, food, even a place to stay. The same young mechanics, who mocked him earlier, now stood in awe, asking if they could help. Marcus had turned his humiliation into a moment of triumph, not by shouting or begging, but by doing what he did best, showing the world that his skill, his spirit, and his worth could never be erased. Word of Marcus's quiet act of brilliance spread quickly around town. Within a week, more people began seeking him out, not just to watch, but to hire him. Local news stations picked up the story of the homeless racing champion who was fixing cars in exchange for food. The same shop that had laughed at him now offered him a job, this time with respect in their voices. But Marcus didn't rush to accept. He had spent too many nights under the stars learning what real survival meant, and he wasn't about to lose himself again chasing applause or money. Instead, he used the tips and food people gave him to rent a small garage on the edge of town, a place where he could work on his own terms. Slowly, that garage became a safe haven for struggling teens, out-of-work mechanics, and anyone who needed a second chance. Marcus didn't just fix engines anymore. He fixed people's faith in themselves. He taught kids how to repair bikes and tune up cars, reminding them that their circumstances didn't define their future. Every once in a while, someone would ask him about racing, about what it felt like to win. Marcus would smile and say that the biggest race he ever won wasn't on the track. It was the one that brought him back to himself. And as for the men who mocked him, some of them became his biggest supporters, volunteering their time at his garage, apologizing for how they once treated him. Marcus never held a grudge. Life had humbled him, but it had also given him the power to inspire others through quiet strength. His story became more than just a local headline. It became a reminder that we never truly know the battles someone is fighting. The man you pass on the street, the one you laugh at or ignore, could be a champion in disguise. So the next time you see someone holding a cardboard sign, ask yourself, are you looking at a stranger? Or are you looking at someone who's just waiting for one chance to rise again?